program. So it is 7:35, which means we are going to officially begin. It is my pleasure on behalf of our community to welcome Jake Cohen. Really welcome you back home, Jake. I know we're in virtual land, but the truth is
Yes.
we are in East Nassau community, but we're probably from lots of places. Jake grew up in Queens, but moved out here in time for bar mitzvah. And he became bar mitzvah at the Chabad of Melville, right in our neighborhood. He attended Half Hollow Hills High School, and he currently lives with his husband in Long Island City. And I told him that's all I'm going to do because he's going to take over the rest.
Amazing. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here at Cooking from the Book. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be talking through this first recipe that we're going to get cooking. I'm preheating my oven to 400 degrees just to get the party started. We're making crispy chicken thighs over tzimas. Very like old school classic. I mean, I'm very into tzimas. I love that kind of sweet side dish on the table, and very similar way of like noodle kugel, where borderline dessert level sweetness, but really, really warm and gorgeous. And I fell in love with it deeper when I met my husband. I'm Ashkenazi. My husband is Iraqi Persian Jewish. And one of my favorite parts of kind of exploring the diaspora in terms of food is the way that there are so many parallels. So, for example, there is a Persian stew of carrots and prunes that's spiced with advieh, which is their spice blend that has black pepper and cumin and cinnamon and coriander and a lot of the same warm spices that you would find in tzimas with the same ingredients. So I wanted to do something that was really kind of playing on that sweet, savory field. So we're going to be rendering out some chicken thighs until they're crispy, get some schmaltz built up, throw in some carrots, orange juice, prunes. Everything is going to be seasoned and fragrant and delicious. And why don't we get started? To get going, I have my chicken thighs here, 2 pounds, 4 thighs. You could definitely bump it up depending. And I'm just going to season it with a little bit of cinnamon, just like a half teaspoon, some orange zest, and then some salt and pepper. And I mean, it's really not uncommon to find cinnamon, warm spices used to spice meat across the world, really, in so many different cultures. So the idea of like orange and cinnamon, I mean, typically this would be the combo you'd be throwing in your challah French toast. It's just as good on your chicken, just a little bit different. And as soon as you kind of open your mind and eyes to the beauty of how diverse Jews cook, you really can quite surprise yourself. So I'm going to season this pretty well with salt and start heating up a few tablespoons of oil in my pan, about 3 tablespoons. And I'm going to be bringing you around. We're lucky that we have 2 cams. So we have a counter cam. So in a moment, I will bring that one right over. But I'm using cast iron. This is my cast iron, nice little 12-inch. You could also use just any skillet will work, truly. But I love the cast iron just because it gets a really nice sear. And one of the tricks when you're cooking chicken thighs, a lot of people are always like, when you're doing a cooking class, or watching a TV show, they're always like, oh, well, you got to make sure that the pan is hot. You gotta wait until you hear that sizzle. And that's actually not the case for chicken thighs, because of the fact that we want to really treat it almost like duck breast. We want to render out all of that fat. So by putting it in right after you add in the oil, actually, let me rub this on quickly. Yeah, nice and seasoned. What we're going to do is allow any extra fat to render off and just collect in the pan and help get really nice, crispy skin. Yes, you can definitely use breasts instead, but they're not as delicious. Crispy chicken skin is truly, I mean, I just think this dish is playing off tzimas, and I think the idea is old school kind of shtetl classics. And to me, you get a little bit of gribenas and you get a little bit of tzimas, and I think that should be a priority. And again, any questions throughout the whole time, throw it in the chat. You can't use cutlets. Cutlets are too thin. Well, we are doing something that we're going to be cooking over carrots, and we're going to par cook the carrots in the pan, but then it's going to be popped into the oven. So I would not do cutlets. I would do full boneless, skinless chicken breasts, sear them off, and then kind of treat it very similarly. And we're gonna let this go. Meanwhile, let me move this over. I'll move my camera over, and we shall begin talking about everything else. Boo, boo, boo. Amazing. Okay, so over here I have one onion that I sliced thinly. You could use just any yellow onion. Use a sweet onion. If you only had a red onion, you could use a red onion. You only had leeks or scallions, you could do it. The thighs are not boneless. I love bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. They are delicious. They're easy to make, and they have so much more flavor. So much more flavor. Go for it. Treat yourself. And it's cheaper. It's cheaper when you get the bone on. So what we're going to do is once we get it nice and crispy on both sides, then we're going to add in our onion to fry that up, season up a little more, and then we're going to be doing carrots and prunes. This is 1.5 pounds of carrots. I love rainbow carrots, but you could really use any carrots. Mine actually didn't have greens today, but so I'm going to use some regular herbs. You have the greens, save them. Too often you get these huge bunches of greens and you end up like just throwing them straight into the garbage. Completely edible. And on top of being edible, they are delicious. They're great for making pestos, or like in this recipe, a nice little relish where we're just tossing it with some oil and some garlic. So it's really, really good. But that being said, you can use chopped parsley, dill, a combo, whatever you got going, it's going to be great. There is this idea, we're coming close to Passover. One of my favorite things to talk about in the kitchen when it comes to cooking is Dayenu. Everyone knows the song. It's surprising how many people do not know what Dayenu means. Obviously, it would have been enough, referring to all the miracles of the Exodus. But really, I think that extension of gratitude for whatever hand you're dealt can be applied to literally anything, including like, you don't have chicken thighs, you have chicken breasts, Dayenu. You have carrots with tops, without tops, Dayenu. You only have leeks and scallions and no onions, Dayenu. You're gonna make this work. It's a beautiful dish. You can make it fit your family and what you got on hand. So we're gonna just let that render out, and I'm just gonna get a little organized. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to throw in my carrots and prunes right here. I'm gonna zest another teaspoon of orange zest and throw in all of the juice. And while we are doing these recipes tonight, I'm happy to talk about literally anything. All right. What the juice is going to do is it's going to help add some liquid as we cook the carrots to steam it. And the reason we want to like help steam, start par cooking the carrots, but also reduce down the liquid of the orange juice so it kind of becomes this nice glossy glaze. What kind of haroset do you like to make for Passover? So I grew up with apples and manischewitz, and then when I met my husband, we did our first combined Seder. I fell in love with Iraqi haroset, which is literally just chopped dates and Ceylon date syrup. Super delicious. So I've been playing around with a bunch of things. I'm actually making, coming in my Instagram soon, I'm posting a haroset cake, like a play on a flourless apple cake, but with all the flavors of haroset. I love like Sephardic versions with dried fruit and dates and nuts. At the end of the day, haroset just has to be sweet. There's no like one way to do it. Cultures from all across, Jewish communities from all across the world make it differently. The point is, it's got to be something sweet because we're throwing it on with the maror, a little reminder that sweet things are sweeter when layered over bitterness, much like our freedom after being in bondage, all that good stuff. So have fun with it. Use what your family likes. All right, we're starting to get some really nice color. I'm going to continue to move it around, make sure everything gets nice and evenly cooked. Then we'll flip it. We've got some beautiful schmaltz action rendering, which we love to see. What is my culinary background? Straight from high school, I went to the Culinary Institute of America upstate for college. And then after that, I worked at Danielle, a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Manhattan, as well as ABC Kitchen, another very popular restaurant in Manhattan. From there, I transferred to media, where I led up all the recipe testing for Saveur magazine. I was on the food editor for Tasting Table, the food critic for Time Out New York, and the editorial director for a website called The Feed. And now I can say this tonight. And starting tonight, I'm a New York Times bestselling cookbook author. All right. Beautiful, crispy, rendered skin. And now we're gonna get some color on the other side. Would love recipe for charoset and charoset cake, not on Instagram. Charoset cake is coming, patience. The charoset, I would go to, actually, I really love, I just kind of helped a friend of mine who works at the Washington Post come up with a few recipes. But I don't have a charoset recipe written out, mainly because I've just fallen in love with the walnuts and date syrup because it's so simple. But you can do whatever you would like. All right, we're getting some nice color on the bottom side. Want to make sure everything gets golden. We're not cooking this through. I think that's a key part of, like, you got to use medium-high heat. You really want to be cranking it because we're going to get nice golden color, but we don't want it to be cooked in the center. It's cooked in the center. By the time it comes out of the oven, it is going to be absolutely like dry, which we don't want. So we want to keep it still raw in the middle so that it can then go on top of the carrots. All the flavors can come together and it's going to be delicious. You watched me with Jamie Geller. Oh, yes, I was so fun this morning and we talked all about Ceylon. So I think this is a good kind of point to make. Jamie lives in Israel, and in Israel, you see a lot more normalization just based on percentages of communities of Sephardic and Mizrahic people and Jews. So something like Ceylon, like these are really common ingredients in any Persian, Iraqi, Syrian, Lebanese kitchen. So I think the idea is in America, we are so normalized with just Ashkenazi food that we don't really think about the broader community. I put it on literally everything. I put it on my yogurt in the morning. I drizzle over vegetables before I roast it. I stir it into sauces. Pretty much any application you would use honey, you could use date syrup. And it's on top of it, it's like it's vegan technically compared to the honey. Okay, we got some nice color. I'm gonna pull these thighs. Beautiful, beautiful. And now straight to the pan, I'm going to throw in my onion. And this is what we're going to do. Grab a little wooden spoon, start cooking it down. We want to pick off all of the little brown bits, all of the chickeny goodness. That's it. Can you cook this ahead of time and freeze it? I am fascinated about, I honestly feel like I will sell double the amount of copies of books if I did a Jewish freezer cookbook, because every demo I've done, that is always the first question. Can I freeze it? No. And I'll tell you why. I do not believe in, I believe in prep. I believe in getting ahead. There's so many things that you can do, and to the degree of you can sear off your thighs, add in your onions, cook your carrots, and I'll tell you when you could just take it off and wrap it up and pop it in the fridge. But once you finish cooking your chicken will never be as good as when it comes out of the oven. It's funny because there's no word in English. I don't know if there's a Yiddish word. I would hope there's a Yiddish word for it because there's an Arabic word. My mother-in-law speaks, her native tongue is Iraqi Judeo-Arabic. And there is a term called zuchum, which is the like off flavor when like day old chicken, like after you reheat it, it's just never the same. Like they have a word just for that, which I love. I find that just so fascinating because it can be so applicable to so many proteins. But I truly believe zuchum is going to always come if you cook it to completion and freeze it. So I'm going to show you exactly when you can pause on this recipe, pop it in the fridge until dinner, for dinner the next day. This is something that I prep a lot, like for when I'm hosting Shabbat. I'll get it all the way up to when it's supposed to go into the oven. and then just wait until right before my guests arrive or when my guests arrive, and then just pop it in. And someone knows my grandmother in Aruba. Love to see it. We love Annie. The Jewish geography at all these demos is always my favorite part. I'm sure based on my high school out there, I know either your children or grandchildren, or there are many connections, I have no doubt. So we're cooking this down. We want to really like scrape up these little brown bits on your pan. That's where all the flavor is. We just worked so hard. It's caramelized orange zest and cinnamon and little bits of schmaltz and chicken skin. Like, this is everything. This is everything. I went to East. And then once that's down, we're going to throw in the rest. What I will be doing is I'm going to throw in a little bit more cinnamon. Some to flavor the chicken, a little to flavor the onions. Again, it just adds warmth. Just adds warmth. Yes, I see the recording button is going. We are recording this. Do not worry. It's one of those dishes that I really love. And I think the book itself is, I don't take myself very seriously. I think that Jewish food should be something that's celebrated. I look at, I'm sure many of you, I mean, maybe not many of you because you're a part of a JCC, but maybe you have a niece or a nephew or a grandchild or know someone in the community that really just crams in Jewish food to the high holidays. They have all of their Jewish food at Passover, at Yom Kippur breakfast, all of that good stuff. But when it comes to, I'm going to put on my vent fan, sorry, so I don't set off I have a tendency to set off my fire alarm during these demos. And what was I saying? I have a tendency, oh yeah, people who cram all of their Jewish eating to just the high holidays. I want Jewish food to be something that we celebrate all the time, every day. I think there's no reason you can't be making simmus on a random Tuesday or cholent for Wednesday or Sunday night dinner. There's something so special about all these flavors. And I think if I can find ways to make them just accessible for people to want to cook in today's world, I think that's beautiful. We're not in the shtetl anymore. We can add herbs and fresh lemon and all of these beautiful things. Is schmaltz cholesterol free? I wish. That's the thing. But I just got back from my physical and my cholesterol's doing well, and I still eat a lot of schmaltz. It's all about moderation. You don't have to have a lot of schmaltz. A little schmaltz won't kill you. All right, this is looking gorgeous. Exactly what I'm talking about. We've picked up, got some nice caramelization. They've softened down. And I'm going to throw in my carrots, prunes, and orange. And the orange will help deglaze the pan, pick up any leftover chicken bits. Drop a little something. My children agree. They like to eat chicken brisket once a week. Who wouldn't? I have a brisket in the fridge for a demo I'm doing tomorrow. I graduated East in 2011. If that's going to date me. Can you see the pan and prep? It is right here. You have another one. My guess is you might be watching this on a phone or an iPad. You have to swipe from speaker view, or maybe you're in gallery view and you have to swipe to speaker view. That should fix it. So we're just going to cook this down until the orange juice has kind of reduced and coated these carrots. They start to soften a bit, because if you just threw your chicken on some raw carrots, your chicken would be cooked and your carrots would still be crunchy. And by the time your carrots were tender, your chicken would be dry, and we do not want that. I'm also going to hit this with some salt, another thing that most Jews cringe at while I do on all of these demos. My blood pressure is fine. We are very aware of everything and our health, but salt goes a long way. If you want, someone just asked, if you want more than 4 thighs, you make batches, you increase the recipe in the same size pan. So, depends how much. If you wanted to bump this up to 6 thighs, maybe even 8, you could keep everything else the same and just sear them in 2 batches. However, let's say you really want to double the carrots too, and you want to have this be more of a thing for a larger group, what I do is I sear everything off, put it on a plate, cook down all my carrots, and then what I do is I pour this out onto a sheet pan, put the chicken on top, and then you just pop that whole thing into the oven. And it makes your life super, super easy. That being said, as soon as you put your chicken on top, you could wrap it up. So whenever I'm entertaining and I'm doing it on the sheet pan, it's done in the morning. I get it out of the way in the morning or the night before, pop it in the fridge, and then you could just get into the oven before your guests arrive. Yes, pitted prunes, very important. I don't know if you can get prunes with pits very easily in the States. Most prunes will come pitted. And I'll grab some pepper too, just because. Thank you. My salted honey chopped liver is one of my favorites. I just think I just applied one of my favorite restaurant techniques to chopped liver, that little sweetness, little complexity, super balanced. Latkes, applesauce or sour cream, or both. Depends. So I'm very much team applesauce. Grew up with applesauce. Applesauce is always the preferred. But for some of my variations, like I do these saffron latkes, which is a trick from my husband's aunt, who also married an Ashkenazi, where they add ground saffron to the latke mixture, and it makes every latke taste like potato toddy. So, so good. Ooh. Sorry, my mother is calling me, naturally, as I have told her many times to stop calling during my book tour. But one thing that, what was I even saying? I keep forgetting. Latkes. So it tastes just like potato toddy. Really good. That one I like with sour cream, and I mix in some advieh kolo, that's like rice spice. The chicken is not fully cooked. No, when you put it back into the fridge, your chicken is still raw in the center. We just seared the outside. The idea is that unless it's going into the oven, unless it's going to be going into the oven and coming out to serve, you do not want your chicken fully cooked. Okay. This is looking nice. So now, whenever I'm cooking, especially at a high temp like 400, something to keep in mind. What's your goal? And if your goal is crispy skin, really nice, tender, and juicy, and cooked through, you need some moisture. Moisture is key. It helps steam the chicken. Again, if it's coming from the bottom, it helps steam through while the skin can get crispy. So what I do is I add in a little liquid. I'm using chicken stock. You could also use a combo of chicken stock and white wine. Really, whenever I'm doing, you just need some liquid. You could technically use water, but water doesn't have a lot of flavor. It doesn't have really any flavor. So by adding chicken stock, it helps also add in some collagen and gelatin. So it becomes this nice, thick, glossy sauce that we're looking for. So now that our carrots have gotten nice and softened, I'm going to throw on 3/4 of a cup of chicken stock. And we're just going to toss this together. And the prunes also break down and help thicken the sauce, which I love. Okay, I can turn this off the heat, and we can put our thighs right on top. 1, 2, 4. Boom. Now we're going to pop this whole thing into a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes. Beautiful. One done. Amazing. And now we're going to go to our next recipe, which is one of my favorites. Can you use siren instead of prunes? You could use any dried fruit, truly. Let me turn off my fan now. You could use something instead of prunes. Yes, you could use chopped apricots, would be delicious. Any dried fruit, cranberries, like truly anything that's going to be a little sweet, little tart. Personally, I would say apricots would be my favorite or go-to. Golden raisins, maybe too. But again, those are all going to be polarizing. But prunes, I mean, prunes are a Jew's best friend. Let me grab out the tiramisu, which is our next recipe. So I want to talk through this. This is one of my favorite kosher for Passover desserts. When I was writing the book, I really wanted to, I love that challenge. I think that Passover desserts are often like, they're mistreated by the way people serve them. The way they go to these bakeries that make shitty flourless chocolate cake, all of that, don't like it. But it's such a beautiful challenge. I love a challenge. In the book, I have many, many kosher for Passover desserts. The first one being my Macaroon Brownies, which is really great. A layer of brownies that's thickened with coconut flour on top of the coconut macaroon layer. Very good. I have rainbow cookies that are kosher for Passover, an almond layer cake with chocolate buttercream that's kosher for Passover, Iraqi almond cookies that are kosher for Passover, meringue cookies that are kosher for Passover, though technically the Ashkenazi will get angry because I add cornstarch, but I married a Mizrahi, so technically that is all kosher, but you could also use potato starch if you are truly, if that will shake you. My aunt still, even though we now do combine seders and serve rice, my aunt always makes sure to let everyone know that she will not be eating it. And then one of my absolute favorites is, can you make the desserts gluten-free? Not, actually, yes, all of them are gluten-free. All of my kosher Passover desserts are gluten-free, which is kind of miraculous. They all use almond flour or coconut flour. So every kosher Passover dessert is also just a wonderful gluten-free baking recipe for the entire year, including this recipe that we are going to be finishing, which is called tiramisu. Can you make them dairy-free? There are some dairy-free recipes, but in general, no. My macaroon brownies have a really good carb substitute because all you have to do is swap out the butter for coconut oil, and then you have a very just beautiful coconut-heavy brownie with macaroons, and it's really good. Same with the Iraqi almond cookies are parve, and the meringue cookies are parve. So you got 3 delicious parve kosher Passover desserts, as well as another 3 not parve kosher Passover desserts, which in general, I'm not gonna lie, like that's like not to be beggars can't be choosers. Like to have that many options in a Jewish cookbook, I'm quite proud of, including this one, which would be gluten-free if you use gluten-free matzah. And all we did is I made a little sabayon. So I whisked some egg yolks with some sugar and this baby, some Kahlua, delicious coffee liqueur. Obviously, a traditional sabayon would use a sweet wine like Madeira, and I'm just using coffee liqueur instead because we're making tiramisu. We want it to be like rich and have a little jolt in it. And then once you do that, you just whisk in some mascarpone and whipped cream, and we layer it over matzah that I dip in more Kahlua and hot coffee. And truly, that's it. You just make layers of coffee-soaked matzah with this whipped cream mixture, layer it, pop it in the fridge, and you get this beautiful dessert. I'm going to finish it off with a little cocoa powder, if I can find it. I always, here we are. Beautiful. Caught the fall. Are you sending us all samples of the cake? I have actually, you know what? You think I'm kidding, but I post a lot on Instagram, especially with all these demos I've been doing lately, where I have so much and I just can't eat this much. I can't have this in the house. Like it's not good for me. So I literally post on Instagram and I have people come pick up. So it's a first come, first serve. And if they live in my neighborhood, I have an extra babka, and some girl came over in 10 minutes and picked up the babka. And then she gets to enjoy babka and I don't have to let it go to waste, which has been great. Do you have any tricks on matzo balls? My matzo balls are very good. I will say that, like, I'm very particular in terms of sizing, in terms of density, which is the common thing. I think they're a nice in between of dense and fluffy. On top of the fact that I think the trick to good matzo balls is schmaltz. You need to have schmaltz to make your matzo balls. And I also love adding chopped dill to the actual matzo ball mixture in addition to tons of chopped dill in the soup. All right. Throwing a little cocoa on top. And like, this is such a delicious, very easy, very non-traditional K4P dessert that people are gonna love and be wowed by. I mean, it's like you typically always will just have like the canned macaroons and flourless chocolate cake. And a fruit salad. I'm trying to think what other things that my aunt would serve at Passover. The rainbow cookies are a good example. That's something I wanted to recreate because those were my favorite, were the K4P rainbow cookies. And I just think all of those types of foods and stories are so beautiful. We didn't invent rainbow cookies. I mean, rainbow cookies is an Italian classic, but when you then start to talk about Jewish food through the lens of our history of the Jewish immigrant community on the Lower East Side next to the Italian immigrant community, in a very similar way that you think of like Jews eating Chinese food on Christmas as part of that same story of Lower East Side immigrant community proximities. That's it. I know we're talking Pesach. What's your favorite bagel shop? I grew up a Bagel Boss in Queens, and I still love Bagel Boss to this day. Probably my top. Other than this new one in Long Island City called We Bagel, and it's really great bagels. I don't know what to say. It's this Israeli-owned bagel shop, and I love it. I love it. Jelly rings and marshmallow twists. Big fan of jelly rings. I had the privilege. I think it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I got to go on a tour of like a very like I Love Lucy style tour of the Joyva factory for making their tahini, their halva, and their jelly rings. And I got to have like a jelly ring right off the conveyor belt, and it was magical. Magical. All right, let's scoop in to show you. But I'm a big marshmallow twist fan. My father, on the other hand, is a big jelly ring person. So you see how beautifully fluffy this looks? And you have the matzah. So it's like a matzah icebox cake. It's how it originated, is just using the matzah and soaking it to really like give it a nice texture, better texture. Same as this is just lady fingers. Those are just dry cookies until you reconstitute them and make them delicious. I'm telling you, it's the best matzah dessert you'll have. It's so good. It's very rich. It's very decadent. But I mean, listen, we wandered the desert for 40 years. You deserve some tiramisu. That's real good. All right, then we just have a few more minutes on our chicken. Let me see what I got in terms of herbs. I got a little bit of parsley and some scallions. So that's what we're going to use today. It kind of goes with the whole plan of like Dainu. If you don't end up with some nice carrot tops, use whatever herbs you got on hand. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't even have to be like roughly chopped or anything. I'm just going to tear up and slice some scallions and call it a day. I'm telling you, the tiramisu, if you love tiramisu, you're going to love the matzo version. But if you have the time, make the macaroon brownies. The brownies are truly, truly, truly one of my favorite creations of the book. And I could already tell you, all your friends, all your family, they're going to be posting pictures of them making it, and then you're going to feel left out and just like get out of the way. Those freeze beautifully. You want to make them today and freeze them for Passover. I give you my permission for that. Listen, I got plenty more. I'm actually making two more tiramisus next week. So I have no doubt that I'm going to start packing them up and calling for people to come and like get your tiramisu. Where can you get my cookbook? Wherever books are sold. You get it on Amazon, but I'd also love to say support your local indie bookshop. When it comes to Long Island, you can go to the book review. I know they have it, which was like my favorite thing in high school, was to go to book signings there. And unfortunately, I can't have an in-person one, but hopefully we'll do something there belated. But truly anywhere. And then the link in my bio, because if you pre-ordered my book, or if you still order it, I extended it, you can download my digital Haggadah I wrote as a bonus, which is just like a wonderful curation. I worked with One Table. If you know anyone in their 20s and 30s, you should be sending them to One Table, an incredible nonprofit focused on getting millennials into creating an accessible and sustainable Shabbat practice. It's how I kind of got into Shabbat, which I've only been hosting for 3 years. I didn't grow up with Shabbat. It's only something that my husband and I brought into our lives 3 years ago. And one table helped me curate this like beautiful Haggadah that kind of dives in a little bit deeper into all of the steps and offers alternative quotes and poems and meditations on all the acts of Seder. And I even have this really delicious edible Seder plate, because I think everything is symbolism, and you don't physically have to have a lamb shank on your table if you have something that is going to be a conduit to the conversations of what it represents. So check it out, if you will. What is my Instagram handle? It is my name. I am at Jake Cohen. There are many Jake Cohens in the world. There are many even gay Jake Cohens in the world, but I am the only at Jake Cohen. I'll show you how we're doing. It looks gorgeous. We got some scallions going. Beautiful. I'm just going to use some scissors. Just want a little green, a little brightness. Gorgeous. All right, so some scallions and parsley that I'm going to throw on top. In the recipe, I dress my carrot tops with some olive oil, salt, and grated garlic, which you totally can. Today, I'm just going to keep it simple. Another example, I love when people take my recipes and make it work for them based on your day, your mood, the amount of time you have. Go wild. Just don't call me when you cut your sugar in, when you took out all the sugar of the meringue. You're like, why didn't it turn out right? The baking recipes, everything has a reason. So those are the only things you can't really mess around with so much. Oh, sorry. Another call. Okay, we got more questions. Lay it on me. I'm just eating tiramisu. Oh, go on. Do you have any recipes for one person or two person with leftovers? So my book is really about entertaining and the act of Jewish hospitality, the act of Shabbat, the act of welcoming in the stranger, which is something that obviously won't be happening for a hot second, but hopefully soon. And when a lot of the recipes have larger portions, but it's great for meal prep. Cook it, enjoy it for days, freeze it. Leftovers can be frozen. That I give permission on. Can you cook chicken in a stainless steel frying pan? 100%. The only thing you want to make sure that you're careful of is like the fond, the little brown bits that stick, they'll burn. They burn a little more easily on stainless steel. So you just want to make sure, and then if it starts to get a little too dark, you pour in a little chicken stock, cook it out. Is that a celiac? He's going to love the book. Where do we get the book with the Haggadah? No, so you get the book, and then you head to the link in my bio on Instagram, and you scroll to the bottom, or you Google Wake and Jake, or you go to wakeandjake.com, which is my website. And on my cookbook page, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see a button that says redeem your Haggadah, and it will ask you to like place in your order number, and you will download it immediately to your computer. Non-stick frying pan also works. You also want to just make sure that it's oven proof. Favorite restaurant in Long Island City? Oh, in LIC. I thought you were going to say Long Island. I'll just taste some Long Island. Obviously, we were always a big Blackstone family. But my first restaurant I worked at was Roast Sandwich House in Melville, and it makes the best sandwiches in the world. Still to this day, we'll drive out just for that. It says only until 8/3/8. I know it says that. You can still get it. Download it. He's thinking of culinary school after high school. 100%. Don't make him go to a normal college. That's the worst. Everyone that I went to at CIA was like, oh, my parents made me go to normal college. And then it was just like, oh, I still want to cook. And now all that money's wasted, and they need to spend it again on culinary school. If that's their passion, let them go. because college isn't that important. Here, I'll post there, someone just posted for the Wake and Jake. Just head to Jewish, a cookbook, to that page on the site, and you'll see it at the very bottom. Did I miss favorite restaurant in Long Island City, though? I would say it just opened. It's called Penny Bridge. My old chef, Dan Kluger from ABC Kitchen, just opened a new restaurant 2 blocks away from me, and it's amazing. We also have Jack's, this new thing. Everything's hopping in Long Island City. We also have some incredible Asian food. A new Taiwanese restaurant just opened called Yumpling that I adore. All great. I have a beet kubba recipe in my book from my husband's family. It is my absolute favorite. It's so good. And I'm so glad to finally see a kubba recipe in a cookbook with a gorgeous photo, and just like celebrating that, which is not something that you find very often. And here we go. We got some beautiful chicken, some nice tender carrots, a little bit of sauce at the bottom. And then we're gonna throw on our herbs, or again, if you're using carrot tops, God bless. And we have a delicious dinner. So good, so easy. You have like all of the components. All you need is a little starch. You can do a little rice, you can do a little potato. I think that's the kind of beauty of creating something that is most of a meal, not necessarily all of it, but it's great. My hamantashen are great. Favorite Persian food recipe my husband introduced me to, got to be tadi, crispy Persian rice, but you cannot make tadi without a big pot of gorma sabzi, this beautiful stew, also recipe in the book from my mother-in-law, of beef with chopped herbs and dried limes and kidney beans, so bright and hearty at the same time. I'm obsessed with it. And yes, my marbled hamantashen are quite delicious. I would recommend making them. Most of my recipes, when they're not in my book, they're just living in my Instagram captions. Can't wait to make it. I'm so glad. It's something that's super fun, super important to kind of like celebrate Jewish flavors any day of the week. Let me go. I'll do a little taste test. It's one of my favorite recipes from the book. It's so easy, so comforting. The warmth of the spices with the carrots and all the chicken flavor, the savory notes take over. Again, it doesn't taste like a sweet dish. It's not like the traditional sim is, because it's not overly sweet. It just has a bit of sweetness that helps play with all of that flavor. I adore it. Let's throw it back to you for any more questions. This is your chance. I have fun with it.
Friends, anybody have any more questions for Jake? He was amazing tonight. I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoyed and can't wait to make this dish. But anybody have any more questions? I do want to remind you that this is the cookbook. In case people haven't seen it yet, here's the cookbook. So you can see it. Incredible. It has beautiful pictures in it, in addition to the incredible recipes. And he has a whole page that is designated to Pesach. So you can then check out all of those recipes. The first 35 people who registered, you will get a free copy of the book, assuming you were on tonight. Yeah, so that is thanks to UJ Federation, who helped fund this East Nassau Jewish community event. And it's great for all of our synagogues locally to come together for these kind of programs. And Jake, maybe once we can all be together, we'll do a book signing in a parking lot over the summertime or something.
Would love that. We'll meet at Roast.
There you go. So the first 35 of you who registered, who were on, you'll get an email probably tomorrow from the folks at the JCC. If you are on right now and don't have a last name on, it would be really helpful for you to just go in the rename button and throw your last name, or go in the chat and throw your full name on, so we just know who's here, so we can get the books to the right people. Otherwise, you can go order. I threw the links in there. You can go order from Jake's website directly, or the local bookstores have it. And again, special acknowledgement to my colleagues who are on. Rabbi Jay Weinstein, Rabbi Jen Weinstein, and Rabbi Judy Cohen Rosenberg. We represent all the colleagues in the community. We've all come together for this program, and we're doing another program throughout the week of Pesach. You'll see it via your emails. Again, the partnering synagogues today in this program are Congregation Simchat Halev, Makom NY, Midway Jewish Center, North Shore Synagogue, Plainview Jewish Center, Temple Chaverim, Temple Or Elohim, a community reform congregation, Woodbury Jewish Center, and Young Israel of Plainview in partnership with the Mid-Island Y JCC. Whew. I think I got it all, Jake. You were phenomenal, Jake. I think everybody loved learning with you and from you. It's clear that your dishes look delicious, and we can't wait to make them. And my husband's ready to jump in the car and come over and eat that tiramisu. So
love it. My pleasure.
So, any last questions? Yes, he was also the cover of Hadassah this week. You did a cooking thing with Sharsheret. I know I had my Hadassah here. It disappeared on me. There you go. People have read it and really enjoyed it, so you're all over the place. And Mazel Tov on hitting the New York Times best-selling cookbooks. That's incredible because there are
I'll leave you with one thing. I believe this is only the second time in history that a Jewish cookbook has made the bestseller list. Amazing. And it's a reminder that whenever you see a Jewish cookbook, let's support the community, buy it, send it to someone, party.
Amazing. And for those who didn't see, the recording of tonight will be both on the Mid-Island YJCC's website, and we will give it to the local community. So we'll put it on the Macomb site. I'll give it to the other rabbis so they can go on each of our websites so you get the recording. And really, Jake, we hope this is the first of many times you'll join us. Support him by buying his cookbook if you're not getting one of the 35 free ones. Okay, so thank you so much to Jake for really an incredible hour with you in learning. I think I just answered the question of the recording, and thank you, UJ Federation, for the sponsorship. And again, Marley Cohen from the Mid-Island YJCC, who keeps us all in check. So thank you, Jake. Really.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right, great to have you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much.